Yeah, so I'm gonna go into this some more. So, I don't know if I'm gonna title this a White Walker sighting part 2 or whatever, but I'm telling you, this is a continuation of the White Walker analogy. From my previous video, I titled it "If You Saw a White Walker." So this video is the continuation of that, where it's like, you know, if you saw a White Walker, dude, okay. And this is all in regards to the storyboard, my story. Okay. And part of my storyboard, because again, this is why I call it a storyboard. I mean, okay, so all of this information is relevant. So even talking about what a storyboard is relevant to me telling the story. This is why I call it a storyboard. Now, if I'm calling it a storyboard for a very specific reason, and the viewer doesn't even really know what I'm referencing when I'm talking about a storyboard, well, that, no offense to the viewer, and you know, I mean, I don't necessarily expect anybody to know what a storyboard is. But if the viewer sees that I'm referencing it as a storyboard for a specific reason, I'm referencing it a storyboard. Well, Matt, think of what a storyboard is. Have you ever seen a storyboard? And this is all pertinent information to this story. Like, there's a reason I call it a storyboard. Why? Well, and if the viewer doesn't really understand, well, then, you know, then part of this process is explaining why I call this a storyboard and what is a storyboard. If you don't know what a storyboard is, that doesn't mean you're stupid. It's irrelevant whether you know what a storyboard is or not. But if you don't know what a storyboard is, it's important as a viewer for me to explain that. And so I'll do a quick explanation of what a storyboard is. What is that? There was a controversial movie that this guy was making. Okay, he was some YouTuber, right? And he was putting together this storyboard. He was making a movie. And it was about a civil war in America. And you might remember, I don't remember the name of it. You know, some of you guys who were really geeked out more on the internet back then, I wasn't into it. I'm not really a big let's all geek out on the internet kind of guy. I've never been that person. But it's a controversial thing in like the conspiracy kind of truther kind of thing, where there was this YouTuber and he started getting big. And I think it was because he was making this movie about a civil war happening in this country. And there's a documentary. Well, and it's crazy because the guy ended up dying. He got murdered, and along with his wife and his child, they got murdered while he was, and he was like, this film process that he was going through was like, he was like 2 years deep into the process of making this movie. And he was even starting to talk to, like, he had a couple big fucking time directors that were interested in getting involved in the making of the movie. And he, dude, like, it's an interesting documentary if you come across it. But anyways, so in the documentary, it's explaining this crazy story about this YouTuber guy who is making this movie and all the controversy around it because he ended up getting murdered. They were fucking put his blood on were writing shit on the wall. His wife and his child, his daughter, like fucking 6-year-old daughter or whatever, all got murdered. And they took, whoever murdered him took the blood and were writing crazy shit on the wall and everything. And they never found who fucking killed these people. And he was in the process of making a fucking a low budget DIY movie about a real life Civil War scenario happening in this country. And it was based on predicting that this is going to happen in this country. So there's all this controversy around the film. He was a big time YouTuber. Anyways, and in the documentary, they're showing him in the process of making this film, and they show the storyboard. And the storyboard is like 10 feet tall by 20 feet wide, and it's all these sections of post-it notes and string attaching and this and that. And that's why I'm referencing this as storyboard. This story is not just some easy story, okay? This is based on what happened to me. And it's my telling of the story as honestly as I possibly can, okay, of what happened. And it involves murder, Satanism, witchcraft, high-level corruption, and arson, death threats, and like a cult, like a witch cult, and in a tiny ass little town out in the middle of nowhere with like 1,500 people population, 2-mile radius town in the desert out in the middle of nowhere. Like it's my story. It happened to me. The dark underbelly just popped up out of nowhere, reared its ugly head, and within 2 weeks, I had gotten sucked into the middle black hole of a fucking murder investigation involving a satanic fucking witch cult that the police were covering up, and it went up into the higher levels of government above the law enforcement that were all in part of covering it up. All this shit got dumped on me in 2 weeks. Like boom, big bomb went off. Like half of the block got burnt down in the arson because of the attempt of removing evidence and trying to instill more fear in me and to reinforce the death threat that they put out on me. To let me know they would go follow through with it if I didn't shut up and disappear. Like this is. So, but the story goes deeper than just the event. That's the event. But the pre-event, shows the pre-event and the post-event are where a lot of the supporting evidence to support the wild accusations, like the satanic cult and the witch cult and the even like into the demon possession. So a story. So I have to do this storyboard. I can't just here's the story, guys. I've already tried that many times. One of the 2 subscribers on here may be one of the people that watched me go through this. I mean, dude, when I had a channel running for I had already had this channels going for 5 years or more when all this happened, and it totally hijacked my channel. Among everything else, my whole life got completely turned upside down. So my channel went from what my channel was to, as soon as all this shit happened, then everything shifted to this event. And then a lot of my subscribers were like, they came to my channel because of what my channel was about. And when the event happened, it shifted the focus of my channel from what it was about to nothing but this event. And then I'm having a fucking nervous breakdown because I'm getting death threats, shit, arson, and shit happened to me, like all this crazy stuff. And I can't even process it as fast as it's coming at me. And I need help. Like, I'm going on the videos, trying to get, help. I need help. I'm totally alone. It's like this whole town against me, and the whole town's like a fucking cult. And I'm alone, all alone, unarmed. I got no backup, and I'm unarmed, and I'm just ghost riding it in here by myself, man. I'm gonna be the next motherfucker they find out in the desert. You fucking retards, and nobody came to help me. Not one single person ever. And then you might think that if this were to happen to you, see, this is what's crazy. I couldn't imagine this happening to me until it did. So before this happened to me, I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to have that happen to me. Okay? And so if I were an outsider looking at it, Well, what do I know about that? What do I know about what it would be like to be in that situation? And that's the thing. Not very many people have had this kind of shit happen to them. And the people that have had this happen to them, they already know that this is the way it is. This is the way it goes. Like, you're fucked. Nobody's going to listen to you. Nobody's going to believe you. Unless by some miracle you can pull it off to get somebody. And that's what I'm saying. If this were to happen to you, the viewer, and if you think in your mind that, oh, people would just believe you because you have all these close friends and family and they know you're not a liar, they know you're not a madman, and so if it happened to you, people would believe you, you're wrong. Nobody would believe you. Not even your closest friends. No, you would stand completely alone 100%. Nobody would back your story because you're talking about satanic witch cults and corruption up into the highest levels of the local government where you live, including law enforcement, and cover-ups of fucking murders and death threats and arson and all. Like, nobody will believe you. Or they'd be too scared to even get involved. They'd be like, I'm out of here. Let me just back about fucking 200 yards away. Or how about if I'll just kind of slip out the back and wait till all this settles, the dust settles, and then maybe slip back in when it's all done and say, hey buddy, dude, your closest friends, your closest family, nobody's gonna believe you. Nobody. And nobody's going to help you. Not one single person. You are on your fucking own. Now, if you had people involved, well, then you could process it easier because you have 2 sets of eyes is better than 1. 3 sets of eyes is better than 2. 5 sets of eyes is better than 3. 10 sets of eyes is better than 1. Like, the more people that you have, the more you can piece the puzzle together. Because like I said, all this shit's happening all at once. All that happened within 2 weeks. I can't even dude, think about the trauma of any one single of those events. Not only processing it, but the trauma involved. Somebody burns your shit down, that's trauma, dude. And this is, again, another thing. Have you ever had an arsonist burn your fucking shit down? No? Well, then what do you know about what kind of trauma-inducing effect that has on a person if you've never had an arsonist burn your fucking house down? Okay, that's just one traumatic event. So you have to, not only do you have to process this as it's coming at you, you also have to process the trauma. An arsonist burns your shit down. Well, there's a bunch of trauma. Boom. Now, you're already struggling before any of this even happened. So you're already having to process all these things. You've got COVID going on. You got election. You got all this world chaos everywhere, sheeple everywhere, all this stuff you're already struggling to process. Well, then somebody, whatever, like you get sucked into a murder investigation all of a sudden, and your wife of 3 years happens to be a suspect. And you're like, what the fuck? And so as soon as you look into that, then you find out your wife has been part of a satanic cult for the whole 3 years you've lived with her. Trauma, boom. There's a massive amount of trauma right there. And she dumps you. There's all this trauma, boom. Well, if that isn't enough trauma to process, well, then the next day, your fucking psycho ex, satanic ex, has been conspiring with this cult like this whole time against you that you didn't know. And you still haven't really quite processed that even. And the next day, they put out a death threat on you and tell you either you fucking get the fuck out or you're going to be the next motherfucker they find dead in the desert. Okay? Have you ever had a death threat before? And if not, well then what do you know about the trauma inducing effect that would have on a person? So there's more trauma, boom. And then you're alone. You don't have anybody, there ain't nobody around to help you, And then, 30 minutes after the death threat, well then the cops show up at your house And you know, and then a whole bunch just gets exposed. Like, it's like all of a sudden you realize, yeah, this is all real. There really is an investigation and into this guy's murder, even though the police department itself is saying that there is nothing happened at all, and that people need to shut up and stop talking about it. That's just, this is all just trauma, like trauma, you know, um, and then, you know, just fast forward from that, not to mention all the details in between, you know, then they burn your shit down. It's arson. It's total arson. Your shit gets burnt down. And the cops ain't interested in investigating any of it, not even Todd Minshall's death, let alone how it's connected to the fire that burned your shit down, the arson. They just want to cover it all up. And I mean, this is like massive amounts and this all happens in 2 weeks. And then all your friends, they're all telling you that you're crazy, like, or telling you that, you know, you're really looking at it wrong and it's probably just a coincidence. And you're expected to believe all this is all just a coincidence. I mean, so nobody, not even your closest friends, your closest family, nobody has your back. Everybody's just like, oh, you know, I don't know, are you okay? Maybe you just need to, you know, get some pills from the psychiatrist. I think, you know, or something, you know what I mean? Like, massive amounts of trauma, like all condensed in a 2-week period. And what do you know about the traumatic effects of a death threat? What do you know about the traumatic effects of arson, someone burning your shit down? What do you know about the traumatic effects of finding out that your wife of 3 years has been involved in a satanic cult the entire time and is involved in a murder in this tiny ass fucking town out in the middle of nowhere? What do you know about the traumatic effects of any of those 3 events, yet alone all 3 happening within a 2-week period? And that isn't even, that's not all, there's all kinds of other shit besides that's traumatic that happened in that 2 weeks. What would you know about any of this? Let alone how to tell this story. Again, I'm not saying this to cast shade on or ridicule anybody that might be viewing or watching. I'm just like, this is part of the story. Like you might say, well, why don't you just get back to the story? Well, all this 17 minutes of all this shit I've been talking about is part of the story. And you can look at it like, well, you've already said all this. Well, no, I haven't. I didn't ask you, what do you know about the traumatic effects of having an arsonist or a group of satanic witch cult arsonists burn your fucking home down and just like turn your whole life upside down overnight? What do you even know about that? Let alone the death threat that they put out on you a week earlier, and the traumatic effects of what it would be like to receive a death threat and the traumatic effects of that. What do you know about that? Let alone the combination of the trauma-induced effects of both of those things happening within a 2-week period. And that doesn't even include the murder itself and discovering that your fucking wife of 3 years is involved in murdering somebody along with a bunch of other people that are all self-proclaimed Satanists, and the trauma-inducing effects of that, all within 2 weeks. And again, that doesn't even include all of the details in between that are also traumatizing, like massive trauma all at once. And so, like, if I had other sets of eyes besides mine that were and that would help me process through this as it's happening, and you know, like, that would be ideal. But I've been alone the whole time, and this is 2 years later. The fire happened either October 13th or October 15th of 2022. So it's almost 2 years to the date. And the whole time I've been alone. Nobody's helping me try to piece this puzzle together. Nobody's willing to listen to the hours and hours of the story. I am alone, completely alone. You know, completely alone. And the story is so unbelievable. All I get is everybody from my closest friends to everybody, like the majority of people, is either dark empathy. And if you haven't heard of dark empathy, that is something that to have an understanding of. If you're gonna look at the story, dark empathy is like when your closest friends and your closest family pretend like they're listening to you and pretend they care and pretend that they believe you when really they don't. Haven't you ever heard the phrase that truth is stranger than fiction? The truth is stranger than fiction. And when people are hearing strange truths that are unbelievable, they're gonna express dark empathy. They're not gonna listen to you because they're gonna be looking at you like there's something wrong with you. The only time anybody would even consider your story is as if they have experienced strange truths themselves. And sheeple don't experience strange truths because sheeple choose ignorance. Ignorance is bliss. So sheeple have already chosen ignorance, so they're blind to any of this stuff happening. They wouldn't see it if it was happening in their own backyard. They wouldn't see it. They wouldn't see it if it was happening in their own bed. They wouldn't see it. Only people that have a sense of awareness about what's going on are the only ones that would ever see it. And so you're surrounded by masses and hordes of sheeple that are completely unaware about anything regarding the Illuminati, Satanism, witchcraft, and shit like this, let alone like scandal of murder cover-ups involving the police and then levels of government above law enforcement. They're in their eyes and in their mind, this only happens in the movies. And so the ratio of sheeple to people that are actually awake and aware. If this happened to you, you would stand alone. Even people you thought were awake, you'd find out by experiencing this, you'd realize they're not awake at all. They're just another fucking automaton NPC. And on top of that, they get jealous of you. Because to even consider the idea that this crazy shit happened to you means that you have something going on in your life that is a real event. Whereas their life is just pulling a lever, pushing a button, cha-ching, pulling levers, pushing buttons, because I'm an NPC sheeple. I'm just an NPC lever pulling, button pushing sheeple. That's all I do. That's all life is. And the rare times these people come across someone who actually has a real thing going on that isn't just NPC pulling levers and pushing buttons, you know what they do? They get pissed, they get jealous, and so then they start attacking. So it's like a invasion of the body snatchers. If you're not like them, if you're not one of the invaded people that's just if you're not like them, what do? You know, haven't you ever seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers? If you're an authentic human being that's experiencing real life and real things, the NPCs hate you. They want to kill you. And so if you experience something like this that I'm trying to describe, that's all you'll get. Nobody's going to listen to your storyboard. Nobody's going to care. All they're going to want to do is tear it down and try to debunk it and ridicule it and try to silence you and keep you from talking about it. So this video is part of the story. This is the story.